Few weeks ago, I released my first video on YouTube, a tutorial to make a counter app using JavaScript. In this video, we will be making the same app using React. And in the process, I will also introduce you to a very important React hook, useState. So without wasting any time, let's get right into it. So I'm at my VS Code and I have opened my old counter app only to remind you what kind of app we are making today. So when we click on minus, we will see it is decrementing by 1. When we click on reset, it will become 0. And when we click on plus, it will be added by 1. So now this is a vanilla.js app. So now to make a React app, first of all, I'll open the terminal. And here I will write npm create vite at latest. This is how we can make React apps these days. And when we click on enter, it will take some time and ask me some questions. So the project name, let's name it counter React, and now package name is React. Now we will click on React and we will make using JavaScript. So our counter React app is ready. It is asking us to go inside the counter React app, and next thing we have to do is npm install to install all the dependencies. So while it is installing, let me introduce you to the structure of a React app. So inside the counter React or any React app, we will have an src folder where we will have all our code and files related to styles and everything. So the starting point of a React app is outside this src folder in the index.html file, and here you can find one div with the ID of root. So our whole React app will be rendered inside this div, inside one div only. It sounds crazy, but that's how it is. So now inside this src folder, the starting point is our main.jsx file. So these are not JavaScript files, these are JSX files. So inside the main.jsx, we have our React app being rendered over here. And as you can see, it is referring to the div with ID of root. And now the next point is the app.jsx file where our app will be present. So here we have already some code written here. So now that it has installed everything, I can simply write npm run dev to run my app. And this is my app. You can see Vite plus React, and there is one button. When we click on it, it is adding by 1. So this is already a default counter being built over here, but we will remove everything and build the counter from scratch. So now we have an empty function app, and here we can directly return some HTML. This is not HTML, this is JSX, but it looks similar. So let's write counter over here. And as you can see, we have one counter, but ideally it should come at the top left. And why this is coming at the center and it has some styles, that is because we already have some default styles loaded over here. So I'll remove everything in index.css and as well as the app.css. So now as you can see, our counter is at the top left. So now let's add the buttons over here. So I will write 3 buttons. So let's create one container. Let's name it. So also in React, we don't name class, we name it class name, because this is not HTML, this is JSX. And as you can see, there is also some error throwing, and that is because we cannot return 2 divs or 2 tags simultaneously. We have to wrap everything under one tag. So we can wrap everything under this empty tags, or in this case, let's name it main. And inside we can render whatever we want. So yeah. And there is an error, and that is because this slash should be at the front. So yeah, now this is good. So now inside this btn container, let's create 3 buttons and give the class name button. And the first one will have the ID of minus and also the name of minus. The second one will have the ID of reset and also the name of reset. And the third one will have the ID of plus and also the name of plus. And lastly, we will create one score, and let's name it div score, not div, let's name it h2, and give the score 0, and let's give an ID of score. So yeah, this is what we want as of now. So now let's give some styles. So first of all, in the main section, let me change the font family, and let's give this one. Yeah, this looks good now. And now in the btn container, I want everything to be displayed as flex, and also I want this to be at the center, so justify content center. and I want some gap to be present in between, so let's keep the gap as 100 pixel. Yeah, and now for the h1 and h2 I want them to be at the center, so let's give text align center. You can simply write TSE. And now for every button, let's also give a border of 2 pixel solid black, and let's also give a padding of top and bottom as 5 pixel and left and right as 10 pixel. And let's also give a background color of white and a color of, let's give the background color as red and the color is white. Color means the font color. Yeah, and also lastly, let's give a border radius of 20 pixel. Yeah, now this looks good. So now we will go back to our app.jsx and start writing the code of the counter app. So ideally, what do you think we should write? So let's give one variable, let's call it, oh, we cannot write it inside the return. We have to write whatever we want to write the logic above the return statement. So now here we can write let count equals to, let's say, 0. And whenever we are clicking on minus, let's give an on click over here, and here we can simply write, let's say, count -1, and in place of the score 0, let me give the count over here. So what do you think will happen when I click on minus? So when I'm clicking here, nothing is happening. And why is that? That is because React differentiates between normal variables and state variables. So this count, it is treated as a normal variable, and React will only re-render the component with the new data for state variables. So you must have heard that React has states and components. So every component has some states, and states are nothing but the values of the variables and whatever is there. So the component remains the same and the state value changes, and that is how components are being re-rendered and updated. So that is how React works. So in this case, we will use one React hook, and that is called useState. And using this, we can change the state variables. So first of all, to make useState, I have to write it like this: count, this is our value, and the second argument in the array will be a function, and that is called setCount. This is how we can change the value of this count, which is considered as a state variable in this case. And inside useState, I can give the initial value of my count, and which is 0. And now this ID is 0 only. I mean the ID score, it has count only. So now it will not work. That is fine, that is correct, and that is because we have to change the value of the count using the setCount method. So what we can simply do is we can write setCount, and inside we can do count -1. So now what is happening? Some issues are there, right? So let's go to console and try to find out what is the issue. So what is it saying? It is saying that too many re-renders. Yeah, and that is correct. And this is happening because we are just changing this state value on click count. It should be something like this, so that there is no re-render. So what is this? What does this mean? It means that when I'm clicking on it, I want the state variables to be changed. So now when I'm refreshing, I'm clicking on the minus, and then this function is getting triggered, and that is how it is changing the state variables, and my score is being decremented by 1. And when we are removing this part, it is calling the function on its own, and every time it is decrementing the state by 1, and as a result the component is being re-rendered, and as a result it is falling under this infinite loop. So to avoid this, we can simply do it like this. And that is for the minus method. So what about for the reset and the +1? Very simple. We can do it simply like this on click, and inside I can write set count, and this time the set count will be 0. So when I'm clicking on minus, it is decrementing. When I'm clicking on reset, it is going back to 0. So now for the plus, so now let me just show you that there is another way to write this state change like the set count methods, and that is let me just create one function over here, and this function is, let's call it increment, and inside this increment I can write set count, and I will do count +1. And now in the plus, let me give the on click, and here I will simply write increment. So whenever I am clicking on click, it should trigger this function. This is a different way to write this thing only. This is just a different format, but they are doing the same thing. So now let me save, and when I'm clicking on minus it is going down, when I'm clicking on reset it is going up, and when I'm clicking on plus it is going up by 1. So our counter app is ready. Now lastly, before closing, I just want to show you one more thing, and that is how we can break this React app into components. So right now we have only one component, and that is app, and that is rendering this counter app. So now let's change this app to counter, and now we can see that there is some sort of error. And let me just refresh this, and as you can see, nothing is happening, and that is because the React app should always be starting from a function app. So we doesn't know what to do with this counter app. So we can simply do one thing. We can create one function app over here, function app, and inside I can just create few things. I will return this thing, and I will return this main counter and the closing main, that is this one, and the rest of it will be part of this this counter component. And so I will just take everything and put it inside this empty tags. So now there is a spelling mistake, it should be function. So now our counter app is getting rendered, but it is only showing counter. So how can we render this component, this counter component, in the app component? And that is simple. We can simply write counter, and this is how we are rendering this component. And now when we click on minus it is going down, when we click on reset it is getting 0, and when we click on plus it is getting added by 1. And now the best part of React is I can render many components over here. So now I have 5. So as you can see, all of these are independent of its own. So the state variables are associated with a particular component. So this component has the state variables, this has different state variables and everything. So this is how React comes in handy. So instead of a counter app, you can compare this with lots of Instagram posts. So let's say this is one post with some variables, this is another post with another variables, and all the posts are independent of each other. Like all of these components are independent of each other, and all of them have some state variables. So let's remove everything. And so yeah, that is for this video. We have introduced the useState hook of React. It is a very useful hook. In future videos, I'll be introducing many more hooks like useEffect, useReducer, and many more. And we will also build many more projects. So thanks for watching. Bye bye.